Chapter 6, the argument about Dwight. This involves Harvey, as you can see. This part isn't really about Origami Yoda giving advice. It's about an argument Kellen and Harvey and I had about Dwight. I wouldn't bother putting it in the case file, except that to figure out Origami Yoda, I've also got to figure out Dwight. And I've got to figure out if Dwight is trying to trick me for being a jerk to him sometimes. And this is about the time when I guess I really was a pretty big jerk. One day at lunch, Lance comes over and sits in Dwight's seat at our table. Now, that wouldn't be a big deal, but we didn't have any extra seats, so Dwight would have to go somewhere else. Dude, I hate to be a butt, but that's where Dwight's seat, I told Lance. No, it's not, said Harvey. It's Lance's seat now. Nobody ever asked Dwight to sit here. He just sits here, but I asked Lance to sit here, so that overrules Dwight. Where's Dwight going to sit? Asked Kellen. Hopefully on the other side of the cafeteria, or even better, on the other side of the planet. Dude, said Kellen, he's not that bad. Yes, he is, said Harvey. He's a giant goober. We can't all be perfect like you, Kellen told him. I may not be perfect, but I'm not half as annoying as Dwight, said Harvey. Yeah, you're twice as annoying, said Kellen. That's when we saw Dwight come out of the lunch line with his tray. He is always near the end because he sort of wanders around instead of run walking to the cafeteria like everybody else. Here he comes, said Kellen. Lance, you better go. No, said Harvey. Let's vote. I vote Lance. Kellen votes Dwight. Tommy, how do you vote? Well, I said, wishing I hadn't been dragged into it. Maybe Lance should stay. No thanks, said Lance. You guys are all annoying. He got up and left, and Dwight sat down and started poking holes in his hamburger with a straw. I couldn't tell if he was acting weird because he overheard me or because he always acts weird. Just thinking that maybe he had overheard me was enough to make me feel kind of barfy for the rest of the day. Chapter 7, all about Dwight. This is by Tommy with a bit of help from Harvey. Why did I vote to dump Dwight? Well, Harvey does have a point about him. In fact, he has a lot of points. Believe it or not, walking around with a paper puppet on his finger all day is not the weirdest thing that Dwight does. Not by far. Here are the top 10. These may also be evidence about whether Dwight is making up the whole Origami Yoda thing or not. 10. Back in 3rd grade, for my 8th birthday, my mum made juice and cupcakes for the whole class. Before anybody got a cupcake, Dwight takes a big mouthful of juice and someone makes a joke which wasn't even funny, and Dwight spews the juice all over the cupcakes. So, no cupcakes. Number 9. He lies down on the floor in weird places, like you'll be looking for a book in the library and there he is, lying in front of the encyclopedias. Number 8. One day, Miss Toner sent him to the equipment locker to get a dodgeball for PE. He never comes back, so Miss Toner sent Lance to get him. Dwight was in the equipment locker, beating on the door and shouting, "Squirrels, come save me!" Lance opened the door for him and Dwight goes, "Oh, I thought it opened the other way." Number 7. Last year, in the 5th grade, he wore the same t-shirt to school for an entire month because he got it for free from some place. It said, "Biggie size, your combo for just 39 cents. He makes a knuckle-popping sound that makes a lot of people want to barf. It also happens at the strangest times, like once when I was giving an oral book report on Dear Mr. Henshaw. The pops are so massively loud that I think he's faking them. I'd love to know how he does it. He just puts his hands up to his chin and all of a sudden, crack." Number 5. Sometimes when we decide to be nice to him, he acts like a jerk and just says, "Tycho Brahe has a wax nose," or something weird like that. Number 4. Last year, he tried to get people to call him Captain Dwight. Number 3. Captain Dwight wore a cape until Principal Brabsky made him stop. Number 2, when he's not actively ignoring us, he's usually sitting there like a hypnotised chicken, staring into space and completely ignoring everybody. Number 1, one time a Native American came to school to tell us about his traditions. Then he asked if there were any questions. Dwight asked, "What did you wear for underwear before Columbus brought regular underwear?" And here's the biggest mystery about Dwight. You can never decide if he does these things to be funny or if he's just totally nuts. Nobody ever laughs with him. So how can he think he's funny? But if he's totally nuts, then how come he can have a normal conversation some days or fold origami to get straight A's in math, but nothing else? The next story is about one of those times when Dwight actually seemed pretty smart, though still very, very weird. How did Dwight think we were going to open the door anyway? I like nuts. Chapter 8, Origami Yoda and Shakespeare's Head. This is all about a character called Cassie. The reason I asked Origami Yoda a question was because I broke Mr. Snyder's Shakespeare head. I don't know why Mr. Snyder wanted to have a statue of Shakespeare's head in his classroom to begin with. For one thing, it's ugly, and for another thing, I don't think we've read anything by Shakespeare. If we did, I wasn't paying attention. Another thing I don't understand is how there can be all these stupid, clumsy, loudmouth boys in our class like Harvey and Kellen, who are always flopping around and throwing stuff and acting like idiots. But none of them ever knocked over the Shakespeare head. And then I come along and the thing practically falls over on its own when I walk past. But anyway, that's how it is. I was the one who broke it. It fell off the windowsill, hit the floor and busted open like one of those hollow chocolate Easter bunnies. I think the fact that it was hollow probably means it wasn't a real statue, but I was still scared to death when I broke it. I wasn't sure exactly what the punishment for breaking Shakespeare's head was going to be, but I figured it would be pretty big. Luckily, I was the only one in the room right then. Mr. Snyder was in the teacher's lounge, and most of the other kids were in the library where they hang out every day before school. I tried to do that, but if you don't have anybody in particular to hang out with, there's nothing to do. And I don't have anybody in particular. I just started the school here in January, and I haven't found anybody I like to hang around with yet. Anyway, Shakespeare's head was in about 6 pieces. I took all the books out of my backpack, then I scooped up Shakespeare's pieces and stuffed him in there. Then there was nothing to do but wait and see what would happen. I sat there through the whole class with Shakespeare's head in my backpack and nothing happened. Then, just before class was over, Mr. Snyder noticed the Shakespeare's head was missing. "What happened to Shakespeare?" he asked. I just sat there. "Did you guys hide him somewhere?" he asked. I just sat there. The bell rang. I started to head for the door. "Whoa. Hold up a second. Sit back down," said Mr. Snyder. "It's okay if somebody's playing a joke, but I expect to see Shakespeare back here tomorrow. He has sentimental value to me, so make sure he's back tomorrow, all right?" I just sat there, and so did everybody else. I was afraid Mr. Snyder was going to look at me, but he was mostly looking at Dwight, who I guess was the most likely suspect since he's weird enough to actually want a Shakespeare head. "All right, go on," he said at last, and we all jumped up and left. So far, so good. I was out the door with the Shakespeare pieces in my backpack. Once I got home, I could trash it and I'd be safe. I felt bad for messing up Mr. Snyder's sentimental value or whatever, but what could I do? What could I do about it? At the end of the day, I got on the bus with Shakespeare still in my backpack. Dwight got on and sat down next to me. He sits with me every day. Or actually, I guess I sit with him. When I started riding the bus in January, the only seat nobody was saving for somebody else was next to him. Usually, he's talking about robots or spiders or something. But today, he started right away asking about my backpack. To be in the backpack or not to be in the backpack, that is the question, he said, in a sort of British accent or something. What? I said. The word backpack made me jump. Did he know? Shakespeare, Shakespeare, wherefore art thou Shakespeare? The backpack, perchance? He said. Shh! I whispered. How did you know? Elementary, my dear Cassie, he whispered back, but with the same weird accent. When we rode the bus to school this morning, your books were in your backpack. But now I see that you are holding your books in your lap, yet your backpack is quite full. Therefore, something else must be in your backpack. It's obvious what it is. Are you going to tell Mr. Schneider? No need, he said. I saw him watching you in your enormous backpack when you left class. He's probably testing you to see if you bring it back or not. But I can't bring it back, I whispered. It's broken. Dear me, what a calamity, he said, still in the weird accent, by the way. May I see the victim? I unzipped the backpack a little so he could peek in. By George, it looks like murder, all right. What did you use, a lead pipe or a candlestick? No, it was just an accident. If it was just an accident, why did you sneak the victim out of the room? I didn't want to get in trouble. Ah, but now you're in much more trouble, he said. As the Romans said, Varpius de Leporius octo. The cover-up is worse than the crime. Well, now I was really worried, and I have to admit that I was starting to cry. If I didn't bring it back, Mr. Schneider would think I had stolen it. If I did bring it back, he would know I had broken it and might even think I'd done it on purpose. Either way, he wouldn't know I tried to get away with it. What should I do? I asked. Maybe you should ask Origami Yoda, said Dwight. I'm serious, I said. Origami Yoda is serious too, said Dwight. Forget it, I said. The bus was still about 10 minutes from my house, and after I sat there for 5 minutes without thinking of anything, I finally asked you. All right, I said. What does Yoda think I should do? Dwight put Origami Yoda on his finger and said, New one must you make. What's he talking about? I said. I can't make a new one. He said you must, but I can't. You must, but must, shouted Yoda. I was glad when my stop came. By the time I walked up our driveway, I was thinking that Dwight was crazy and Origami Yoda was crazy, but that they were probably right. I knew I couldn't make a new one that would fool Mr. Schneider, but maybe I could make one good enough to replace the broken one so that he would know I didn't kill Shakespeare on purpose. And that's exactly what happened. I called Mum at work and asked her to stop by the Dollar Corral and get me about $10 worth of that fake Play-Doh they sell. I told her it was for a school project, which was true. I used the broken part of the Shakespeare as a guide, and I did a pretty good job, although the fake Play-Doh was bright blue and red, so Shakespeare ended up being red with a blue wig. When I showed it to Mr. Schneider the next morning, he laughed his head off and wasn't mad. He said that the new Shakespeare was of even more sentimental value than the old one, and it's still sitting there in this classroom, although it's gotten really dry and crumbly and sometimes the nose falls off, but you can stick it back on if you lick it first. Harvey's comment. Was that supposed to be Shakespeare? I thought it was Robert E. Lee's horse. My comment. One of my main theories is that Origami Yoda must be real because Dwight is too clueless to think of the smart things that Yoda says. But Cassie's story makes me wonder about that, since it shows that Dwight can think on his own without Yoda's help. But the next story suggests the opposite. Not only is Dwight not wise enough to be Origami Yoda, he's not smart enough to listen to Origami Yoda. Of course, this time around, neither was I.